also for increased costs. They had to start paying their folks. Well, they were paying people $9 an hour to work. They were having to pay $11, $12 an hour just to get them to come. And so they increased the renewal price. At the previous meeting, the board had expressed a desire not to entertain that increase because of performance issues the second semester of the previous year, last year. So I went back to All Clean and explained to them the position of the board, asked them to consider a different price. I still understand that they do have some issues with getting people to come to work. We have met extensively with both the owner and the area manager. They have met with the high school administration. And I think we have a really good plan moving forward. I don't anticipate us having any more issues or the same issues. I'm not going to say us having any issues, but I firmly believe we have a very good understanding about what we can do moving forward, both from their perspective and with the responsibility that we have to handle some business on our end. So basically, they have decreased their renewal price by a little over $14,000. And so the renewal from the previous contract is now $22,500 compared to the initial increase of $36,936. So the renewal price for the contract moving forward would be $256,776,000 as compared to $271,212 initially. And so even though it is an increase, and I understand the board's concerns, I think there's some responsibility on all parties. I understand that it's going to cost them more money to get people to come to work. And I would hope that the board would entertain consideration of approving their renewal price with the understanding that we're going to be very involved in making sure the high school is as our kids deserve, our community deserves, and as the board expects.
Have a motion for approval?
I make a motion to approve that renewal.
So move.
Moved in second.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Harris?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Daniel?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. McPipkin?
Yes, ma'am. We have Ms. Denny, who's going to speak to us and present some information about art in our county.
Good evening. While Nicole's pulling that up, I'll just tell you a little bit about this art. And I really wanted to bring this tonight because I wanted to recognize these children who've done a community service. A few months ago, Safe Harbor actually called Dr. Smith and asked if they could deliver some blank canvases to us to have students paint on them. And so Dr. Smith put me in touch with the folks at Safe Harbor because I work closely with the art teachers. And I ended up giving each art teacher 2 or 3 canvases. And I'm just going to click through these while I talk. 2 or 3 canvases. One of the art teachers had so many students who were interested that she went out and bought a few additional canvases. But now these beautiful paintings that all have their own little personality, and many of them have inspirational sayings on them, are hanging in the offices of the new Safe Harbor office here in Wayne County. And we just think that it's a great partnership. After I delivered them to the facility and they got them hung, the director emailed me and said how much brightness and life the paintings had brought to the building, and that many times the children who are coming to Safe Harbor are coming under very difficult situations, and just to have this brightness and light from our students' paintings is a great thing. And so we're excited about a continued partnership with Safe Harbor and are just really proud of the artwork that the students did. I want to say a special thank you to our art teachers. I sent out that this was an opportunity, and every one of them immediately sent back and said, yes, we'd love to participate. And so Our art teachers are Kathy Popple, April Popple, Jennifer Litton, Amy Fry, Cindy Blanton, Laura Gregory, and Barb Von Moss. And so every school is represented in these. I think we ended up with 23 paintings. So I just wanted to recognize that and give a chance to recognize these teachers and students for the public on Facebook and for the public here.
This is really good. Those are good.
And,
I can't draw water out of a bucket. I'm always admire people that can draw a thing.
and Ms. Denny's now gonna, provide us just with an update, regarding the calendar committee, school calendar.
So I know that you all have charged Dr. Kelly with planning a 2-year calendar for school year 2023 and school year 2024. And so we put together a timeline for getting that work done. We'd like to work with a committee comprised of 2 representatives from each school. We would, very close to the beginning of the school year, ask principals to go ahead and secure those representatives for us so that they could go ahead and be gathering input from people at their school, in their school community, about needs for a school calendar. We'd have our first meeting on August 25th to get the input from those school representatives. We'd have a second meeting on September 8th where we would present calendar options to the committee based on the input from that first meeting, that prior meeting. And then we gather consensus on 2 calendars to be included in a system-wide survey. We would send the survey out the week of September 13th to 17th, and then present the survey results to the Board of Education on September 28th. Questions?
No, that's good.
We would definitely like the central office and you to be experienced. The last time it just got too confusing. I think every school had got a calendar and it just, so I like this idea.
Well, I'll tell you that meeting 1, there will be schools that bring completed calendars as an
Yeah.
option, and that's okay.
Yeah, they do that anyway. That's their input.
And that's why we're asking for their input. And so that meeting 1 will probably have a lot of lively discussion, and then we'll narrow it from there, but always paying attention to what our folks tell us is important. And of course, paying attention to the guardrails that are naturally there with things like state testing and some needs at the high school with being on a block schedule and things like that. So we'll pay attention to all of those things.
Yeah, and I know there's absolutely no problem with you academic education all the way. But I would ask you, please convince them from the Jump Street to understand that the school calendar is for, the benefit of the kids and what's in their best interest and not our ski schedule.
You just want me to keep rolling?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. If it pleases the board, we'll
Yes.
move right into the mentoring program that Ms. Dinty and some other talented folks are going to talk to you about.
So I'm going to turn this over quickly to Amanda Phelps, but I wanted this opportunity to say that Amanda Phelps and Kimberly Harrison have worked so hard on this project. Kimberly is very ill and couldn't be here tonight, and she is so sorry, and I'm so sorry that she couldn't be here because I really wanted both Kimberly and Amanda to be able to be here to talk about this program. I think it was maybe in the fall that I called Kimberly and Amanda and said, hey, I want y'all to work on a project for me if you're game. And both Kimberly Harrison and Amanda Phelps had done really great projects when they were in the Wayne County Developing Leaders course that made me think that assigning them the task of really revamping our teacher mentoring program to be all that it needs to be for our new teachers and for our mentors, I just knew they would be the perfect people And I think I told Dr. Kelly shortly after I met him that this is the kind of program that can put Wayne County on the map. I think that it's the kind of program that the Department of Education would get a hold of and immediately think we need to emulate this throughout the state and even the nation. Amanda and Kimberly have done excellent work, and so I really appreciate their hard work, and they've been very passionate about it, and I'm so excited that this summer they'll start training our new mentors, and when our new teachers arrive at the end of July for new teacher orientation, they're going to be greeted with people who are prepared and committed to making their first year in Wayne County successful. And I believe that that is what helps us keep the best of the brightest. And so it is worth all of the blood, sweat, and tears that Ms. Phelps and Ms. Harrison have put into this. And I just can't wait to see this program blossom and see them shine. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Phelps to tell you a little bit about their work.
Good evening. It has been a privilege to get to work on this project with Ms. Harrison and Ms. Denny. And I thank you for the opportunity to come and take a few minutes to present an overview of what our program looks like. So let's talk a little bit about the goals of this project, of this program for Wayne County, the research behind it, and how it aligns with our mission and vision for the county and for implementing and improving student achievement. So let's talk about the research that goes behind this program. Research shows that effective teachers are one of the single most important factors in promoting student achievement, and effective teacher leaders influence and build capacity in other teachers. Why do we need mentoring? By year 5, half of educators that enter the profession in Georgia leave the profession. Part of that is because of the disconnect between preparation in the programs that they're coming through for college and the realities of what teaching entails. Other parts of that are not being fully supported to the needs that they have as they're coming into the profession, and not having the support system in place. We know that teachers who receive strong support from mentors tend to stay in the school where they receive that support. Let's talk a little bit more about the dimensions of the mentoring role. So having strong mentors provides new teachers with access to knowledge, experiences, and the support of a master teacher. It enhances their personal and professional well-being and reduces the level of stress that they have in their first 5 years. First 3 years particularly are what we're going to focus on in Wayne County. They increase self-confidence and teacher efficacy and self-esteem, and give them a chance to reduce their trial and error within their first 3 to 5 years. That enables them to move forward more successfully. For mentors, those master teachers that will be in the mentor program, they have an opportunity to practice teacher leadership and development within their school system, building that teacher capacity and leadership capacity within Wayne County. Also, it gives them an opportunity to refocus on their own instructional practices and better those as they're bettering and developing those of new teachers. For administrators, it gives them a touch point and an additional helping hand to be able to connect with the new teachers and help them move through those domains of learning within the first several years. It also, for administrators, reduces teacher attrition and the time that's required to train beginning teachers, to recruit new teachers, to develop, to supervise, and to help them problem solve. They've got that interim person who can be those touch points for both parties. For students, they have stronger teacher best practices. They also have better classroom environments. We see the collective teacher efficacy across the system, but it also affects their atmosphere in the classroom. And for the profession, we've got retention of experienced teachers later in their profession and new teachers. We also get that establishment of professional norms. of openness, of learning from others, new ideas, instructional practices, continual improvement, collaboration, and congeniality. How does this apply particularly to Wayne County? This specifically addresses District Improvement Plan Goal 1, the overarching need to increase the number of students performing proficient or distinguished in all content areas on GMAS by improving Tier 1 instruction. The goal specifically aligned to this overarching need is to improve GMAS scores by 5% from developing to proficient and 2% from proficient to distinguished. 3% now from proficient to distinguished. This specifically drills down even more to our District Improvement Plan Goal 1, Action Steps 2 and 5. So with Action Step 2, this is that job-embedded professional learning where we're not moving to outside resources to be able to train our new teachers. We're developing those mentor leaders within the county who can support at the drop of a hat. It will help us be able to have high-functioning leadership teams within our school, as well as specifically direct alignment to number 5 here, where we are improving recruitment, induction, development, and retention of effective leaders. Not just those new teachers we spoke about, but those master teachers as well. So the purpose of this program is to establish a mentoring relationship and opportunities to realize professional and personal development goals. It enables our school system to build talent internally, and it promotes growth and retention of new and mature teachers while, to the core, improving student achievement. So this aligns a little more to our program goals and objectives. Number 1, always increase student growth and learning. This program will provide differentiated support for new teachers, pre-training, and the development of a cohort of master trainers, of master mentor teachers. Now, this is one of the aspects of the program that's very new. This is a big change from what we've done in the past. There will be training over the summer that aligns to the Georgia DOE mentor training lessons and modules where mentor teachers learn how to coach. They learn about the stages of new teacher experiences, the ups and downs of what new teachers will go through and how to address it proactively. So there's a heavy mentor training component beforehand as an opportunity to get them ready for the stages and the challenges that new teachers will face. This also improves our teacher retention rate we talked about a moment ago, the environment and quality of instruction in our new teacher classrooms, and again, that transition between college and training into teaching and the realities of the profession. There will be this program will have a 3-year multi-tier program. Again, we talked about the supports that will be provided from a variety of individuals within the county and district. There will be weekly and monthly opportunities for professional learning communities and professional development for mentors and mentees, and continuous program evaluation to make sure that the program remains on the edge of research as we go through differentiating needs for individual teachers, just like we differentiate needs for individual students, to make sure every new teacher gets exactly what they need to be more effective and more efficient. There are 3 types of new teachers that this program is going to address. It's going to work with teachers who are new to the profession, teachers who are new to the district but maybe not new to the profession, and then a level of support for teachers who are new to a content area or grade level. And again, all those 3 types of new teachers will receive instruction and support specific to their individual needs. So let's talk a little bit about the types of professional development that they'll receive. Of course, they'll receive the traditional type of support based on instructional strategies, assessment strategies, classroom management, differentiated instruction, and how to build relationships with students. But we'll also expand that type of professional development to talk more about how they can align their work to the priority initiatives or the expectations of the district and school. This includes things like using thinking maps, or there's research-based best practices, how to have effective professional learning communities, and how to analyze data to improve student achievement and the achievement of our school and district, how to work with families and engage and communicate with those families that are not just within their classroom, but within their school and within the county. And then, of course, we talked about the individual needs assessment to make sure that every new teacher is getting exactly what they need in order to be successful. The impacts of this program will include, number one, increasing student achievement, also improving the quality of educational opportunities, developing that professional capacity within our system, developing additional paths for future leaders within the system, and obtaining our district improvement plan goal 1 by improving induction, development, and retention of effective leaders within the system. So I know that was a very quick overview. But if you have any questions, we'll be glad to answer them, and it's been a privilege to get to share this brief overview with you.
I'm excited.
We are.
I am excited. This sounds really, really good, and it's going to be very beneficial for our system, our students, as well as our teachers. I appreciate you all doing that and putting that together. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So this is just a one-year program.
This is a 3-year
Three-year.
cycle.
3-year cycle.
We hope that this, after 3 years, will cycle back through. And it's a continuous evolvement. So for teachers that are new to the system or follow one of these 3 categories next year, that enter the program next year, they'll begin on a 3-year cycle there. So it doesn't stop after 3 years. It's organic and continues to grow and continues to support as we bring new teachers into the system.
So if we have a new teacher, like we had some new teachers that came in, through the pandemic, things were crazy, and maybe they might need to have this additional support. Is this something that we want to consider to do that, or are we just totally doing this for new hires and new teachers to the district this year?
Well, it'll be new teachers to the district, new hires, and those within the system that are experiencing changes from grade levels to content. If there's any additional needs that they may have, that the administrator might say, hey, this is a good opportunity for you to get some extra support here. There's also a level in the program for that.
And like their cohorts, I think we'll have to look at teachers almost like cohorts, because of course we have a crop of new folks this year. We'll get another crop next year. Hopefully we'll be retaining teachers more, and so we won't get as large a crop each year. That ebbs and flows over time. But I think the real beauty of this is that it is very much a tiered and differentiated approach. And so, for example, if I decide to go back to a classroom, well, I'm an experienced educator. I know a lot about teaching school, but I might not know about all of the processes and procedures in the district. And so I need some level of support. I might not need the same level of support as a brand new teacher coming out of college, or a brand new person who's a career switcher who has never student taught, never spent a day in the classroom, and they're coming from being a marketing expert to all of a sudden teaching 7th grade social studies. And so I think the real beauty of the program that they've developed is that it's tiered and it's differentiated. And so some people may need the full 3 years of support, and some people may just need a little bit of support that first year. But they've got great ways to analyze and to know when people need more or less support. And so I think it's going to be really successful.
I think what Nick pretty much is asking, if we would even consider at least the first-year teachers. If they were first-year teachers to our system this year, fresh out of college, or as you said, they're just fresh to education, would we consider placing them in the program to ensure that they have and are getting what they need?
They will be.
Yeah, that's what.
I mean, they just came in for the 2020-21 season.
So
year.
even though they're not brand new teachers this year.
This year.
Yes, those would be
Okay,
ones that we
okay.
would definitely add into the program. And there is a place for that. That would just be something we communicate with the system or with their principals to be able to make sure they're getting the services they need.
Okay, yes, that's what, yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Phelps, I will tell you congratulations for your promotion
Yeah.
as assistant principal to the high school. I think it speaks volumes that Ms. Denny, contacted you and Ms. Harrison way back in the fall before those opportunities came, and the opportunities that both of y'all are moving into definitely, speaks to your leadership and the things that your skill set, what you're able to do for the district. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Ms. Phelps, if I may, I have one very brief question. First of all, I want to commend you and Ms. Denny on the efforts in implementing this program. Is there a component of the program that allows you to monitor and get feedback from the participants where we can evaluate and see where we need to tweak it? I think that would be, if we don't have that, obviously feedback from the participants would be one method to measure success, and maybe retention rate, maybe another. Just an idea for you to consider.
Yes, absolutely. That's an excellent question. There are built-in, we call them formative assessments, for us to be able to speak with teachers and make direct connections monthly. At the end of every semester, there will be a survey sent out to teachers where they can directly talk about the strengths that they see within the program, the strengths that they feel within themselves, areas of growth for the program itself, areas of need for their personal training and for their mentors. So this survey will actually go to mentors and mentees. We're also going to be monitoring student performance through our PLC so that we're making sure that all this work is actually enacted and it's actually benefiting the students. So there's multiple levels of connection and being able to check and monitor to make sure that it's all beneficial to the
That
students.
sounds great. I've already thought of that.
Yeah, and honestly, sometimes we get in such a hurry in education and we have a lot of hats to wear and a lot of plates to spin. And so we often start out with really great initiatives, but maybe we don't have that program evaluation piece built in from the very beginning. And so we find ourselves after the fact trying to really evaluate the effectiveness of our program. And they have already built in those pieces, and they built them in different ways, with focus groups, with the surveys, with paying attention to student data. They have developed a beautiful handbook that we're going to have printed. The place that prints our pacing guides is going to print it, but it is the full package, and they've done an excellent job.
Sounds like it's well thought out, and I believe it'll be a great success. And it's needed. Thank y'all again.
If I may, just one thing about the mentoring program, you guys have mentioned to me several times about how do you attract, retain, and develop talent in your own system. And so, the way you do that is you find, the experts in your system, and then you jump on the bandwagon. So I'm jumping on the bandwagon with these two things.
That's a good question.
And so we'll support them in any way, because I think they have a very solid program that's going to really benefit.
Sounds like
Yeah, I'm very excited.
it's good.
Are you guys ready to proceed? Okay, I just wanted to mention real quick about Facilitron. We had spoken, several meetings ago, a couple of months ago, about opening things back up. I just wanted you to know that the language that was expected from the board with regard to cleaning facilities and all that has already been added. The prices have been added, and all the information has been communicated to the site, and it opened back up for public use to be able to consider renting facilities on June 2nd. So that's done, and the expectations of the board have been met with regard to Facilitron.
How does Facilitron break down the payments? Or have they started breaking down the payments that of the rentals? For instance, if I rent Martha Ross Smith Elementary's gym, do we get a statement stating specifically how much or when it was rented and how much it was rented for? And the reason why I'm asking, because I had a question about it several years ago, and it wasn't broken down that way.
Yes, ma'am. We should be able to run just about any form of a report that you wish to have with regard to what's rented, how often, the revenue generated, and so on and so forth. So we should be able to do just about any of that, and can provide that whenever you request it, or the board requests it. Yes, ma'am. Anything else about Facilitron? I just wanted you guys to know it was up and running and ready to go.
Good.
Okay. Very good. Capital outlay. Okay, so basically on our capital outlay projects with regard to the track, they have begun putting the storms, the drainage in the ground. If you've been by there, you saw, the excavator do some work. They still have about 3, 4, 5 more days of finishing that up. The next phase that they'll jump on is more precise grading, curbs and gutters, and then, preparing the topsoil ready to start, with installation of the various sub components of the track. We did have a contingency issue when they were out there putting some things in. There was an old, I think a 24-inch drainage pipe with a head wall, big concrete wall that was buried that we didn't know was there. And so that was discovered. We had to basically demo and eliminate that and reroute from the high school around the track out, out to where it could empty into a drainage basin. Doesn't cost us any more money, just ate up some of our contingency, which is what it's designed for. Those things that we don't know it's there. It was buried, so they had no idea it was there. But we will make sure that 5 years now, from 10 years from now, we don't have a sinkhole in the middle of our track because all that's going to be removed, taken care of. Let's see. Practice fields are in the process of getting irrigation, and soon we'll have sod. There has been a flow test ordered if it has not already been completed. There are some concerns with irrigation and water flow. J.W. Oliver is not scheduled to do a well, but I did speak to TQ, and they are scheduled to put a well in, and they are expediting those permit issues right now, trying to get that done. The size of the well that we're getting is a little more substantial than what would normally be called for, so it requires some state permitting over and above local permitting, and will be more than capable of handling all the water needs that we need. We mentioned, I talked to Mr. Rose, who was project manager from TQ, about maybe manifold or some type of a header so that we could then divert water as we need it, or use the old well versus the new well, or vice versa if things happen or whatever. So we're working on all that. And when it's all said and done, well, when the practice fields go in, we should have plenty of water flow to off the old well to make sure the sod sits and seeds like it's supposed to, and also keep those fields irrigated. And then we get the new well in, and need the new well for all of the fields in addition, and then some different phasing. We should be just fine. We should. And one thing I did learn today from TQ is that the type of well that we're getting may also provide us potable water in addition to other just irrigation water, so we could actually hook water hoses or something up if we needed to. So that meets that capability. We are still in the process of trying to explore the delineation of the area between the two practice fields. And if that happens, then we should be able to use that area as well. I don't think it will cost us very much money. Definitely would be well within our contingencies to be able to develop that. But when you start talking about wetlands and delineation and things, it takes a little while. There's also been mention about maybe doing a soil test, and so we'll get on that and see what TQ can do with that, as far as making sure we understand, or they understand, whoever's working on that we'll take care of those issues. James E. Bacon has started. If you have not seen it, I'm pretty sure all of y'all have been over there knee deep in it. But James Bacon has started. We've removed all the playground equipment. We have moved the awnings. We have, when I say we, it's not me, it's someone else. But all that's been removed. The fencing has come down. There have been electricians out there taking a look at what needs to be done to disconnect and relocate some of the electrical lines and things that are running. What will, where will be the new building. Let's see, we have, they're beginning to, they're making plans, and they will begin doing some demo before too much longer. They have been working with the civil engineer and the site contractor, completing surveys and getting all that loaded up so they can start working with the new building pad ASAP. So all that stuff is about to begin. The abatement is supposed to be done, it's supposed to begin work by the 14th, which is less than a week. And the demolition contractor is supposed to be here also by the 14th to start working in the pre-K building. So things are happening and moving on.
Is that lead or asbestos or both?
It may be some of both. Primarily, it's asbestos because of the age of the building. And
Those tiles and stuff?
and it's primarily in the floor tiles. And so all of that will be removed professionally by a company that's licensed by the state.
Sure.
And all that will be done before they get in there and start demoing things, and it'll be disposed of properly and so on and so forth. So all that will be done as needed. Yes, sir. And it's not a capital project with softball field. I don't know if you've been out there, but there's cranes and all kind of other things going on out there. So that stuff is started as well, and moving right along with that. So those are the projects that are going on right now, and information for that. If you have any questions, let us know. You ready to move on to the Capital Outlay Committee? So you have been presented with a handbook. There's been a few revisions that have been brought to our attention. We've made those. I think there's one more revision that I've made since I've sent you the last version of the last draft. But basically, the Capital Outlay Committee is ready. I don't think, a committee, the superintendent has the authority, from the Board of Education to build and, deconstruct committees as needed. So I don't think it needs official action unless you guys just want to take official action. But, we can form that committee and already have those things in place. And we are ready to get started with that committee. As soon as you guys want to send me members, we can start scheduling dates, however you decide to do.
We took official action on the last committee, but
Okay.
instituted from the board perspective.
If it pleases the board, I would like to volunteer to serve on this committee. Do we have to limit it to one or two?
Two, no more than two.
Okay, but if it pleases my fellow board members, I would volunteer to serve. Question, Dr. Kelly, could we use this facility for our committee meetings?
Mr. Davidson, you are the Board of Education. You use whatever you want. Yes, sir. You can use this facility. Absolutely.
Well, it don't hurt to ask,
Most of the stakeholder meetings that they have are normally in this building.
Okay,
They're doing
that sounds good. That just makes it much more
Yes, sir.
simple to. Normally, it'll always be available if we're not having board activity or something.
Yes, we can schedule this, no problem. And if you guys want to take official action and let it pass, then Chairman, that is at your discretion.
I'll join you with that committee if
Okay.
it's okay with the board.
So we'll move to establish this as an official committee. Mr. Davidson and Mr. Harris has volunteered to serve on that committee. So entertain a motion at this time.
So moved. No question on this.
Moved in second.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Harris?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Daniel?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. McPipkin?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you guys would like to just send me your appointees, call me or tell me whatever, we'll get all that loaded into the handbook.
Now, if I understand right, because I actually had one that I wanted to talk with, and I went back and reread the qualifications. These appointees can't have any affiliation with the Board of Education as far as maybe a business they own, having something.
Currently doing work that contracted
Yeah,
through either that capital projects or other projects that we
any
have.
project.
Yeah, any project that we have. So
Because I had somebody, and then it hit me, I can't ask that person.
That could be a good one too. I think I know you done.
Yeah, but anyway,
yeah, they're currently contracted at the moment. That will present a conflict.
well, that's what I understood. I just want to make sure I was correct.
Anything else with the Capital Outlay Committee? All right. And then next we have Mr. Ellis is up for re-election to the Georgia School Board Association Director, I think it's District 8. Yes, sir. And he would like to run again for that seat. And needs action from the board, I guess, granting their support, permission to run for that, to represent, District 8 in the Georgia School Board Association.
I make a motion that we support Nick Ellis for reelection as our GSBA District 8 Director.
Second?
Move to second.
All right, Mr. Ellis,
I'll abstain.
Mr. Davidson.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Harris.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Daniels.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. McKinney.
Thank you for that. And then the Georgia School Board Association Conference begins on Thursday of this week. And several of you will be attending in one way or another. So it would probably be appropriate to consider that a meeting since you guys will, since there will be a quorum of members present at any given time during this conference.
I make a motion we consider that conference as an official meeting.
Second.
Second?
Move to second.
Mr. Ellis.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Davidson.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Harris.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Daniels.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. McKinney.
Coach, just one thing on the meeting, our delegates this is the meeting that delegates are involved. Ms. Daniel has normally served as our delegate, but she did send me an email that was not on file anymore. So you're still serving as a delegate, right?
Yeah, we're not doing
Yeah.
delegates at this meeting.
Okay.
I think it's going to be done, I was told it was going to be done virtually.
Okay. So
At
we
a-
just need to
at
make
different
sure we
time.
Get that information
Okay.
submitted. I didn't know if y'all were meeting at Savannah or not, but she did say that it wasn't on file. I don't know why that happened.
Okay, should have been.
I know that we were working on that today. So
Okay.
we'll make sure. So,
So it's, okay, yeah.
all right. Being no other business with regard to the conference, we will move on to Dr. Smith and some board policy information and some various actions that we may be asking.
Good afternoon. We have Vcbi, which is the second reading of the policy. There were no changes from the last time we submitted it. This will be up for adoption tonight. So next is the Vcbi procedures. It was changed based on the recommendation to have the sign-in prior to the board meeting. This is not up for board approval, it's procedures, so the superintendent approves the procedures. We want to make sure didn't have any more changes with this.
It's good there.
Dr. Smith, can I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
So we are adopting Vcbi,
Yes, sir.
okay? And we probably want to do that as we go through each item, or we're going to do it all?
I was going to recap at the end to just say this is up for adoption.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. So next we move on to GPC. This is our first reading for professional personnel recruitment. They just, when I had this review by GSBA, they just said that some of our wording was outdated, and they suggested we change from highly qualified to professionally qualified. So that's the changes that you see in this procedure, this policy. Any question on this one before we move on? And next we'll go to GAD. This is also a first reading, revising professional development. When there was nothing objectionable from GSBA, but when I took it to the directors, they did request that we remove the second and sixth paragraph because the information is not needed to be in there. Are there any questions on this one? And next is GPIA. This is a new policy. It's a first reading, the teacher evaluation appeals. This is something that passed that goes into effect on July 1st. And this allows tenured teachers to appeal an unsatisfactory or ineffective annual performance evaluation. And this policy is based on the GSBA sample. Are there any questions on?
And so for this one is required by new law, correct?
Yes, sir.
So first reading today, we'll look to adopt at the
At the next meeting, yes, sir. All three of these policies, the last three will be brought back up at the next board meeting for adoption. So the only one up for adoption tonight is the BCBI, very first one.
Can you put that up on the screen, just that,
The BCBI,
yes, I just want.
the very first public participation in board meetings. This one, or this, probably the one with the green, is the,
I got it.
is the very first of the BCBI.
Yeah, I got put it up on the screen, so that's why I just wanted to make sure something.
It's the top one.
Yeah, let's see.
I thought I had it up, maybe I didn't.
I got it. Well, the procedures up. I got it right here. So will we be doing this at all of the board meetings? Is what I'm trying to,
It
or,
does not have to be done at work sessions.
okay,
So
that's
it's-
what I was trying to clarify,
Yes,
because
sir.
we
Is
know,
it-
typically don't have the public input at the work session,
Right,
so
it
that's all.
just has to be on the agenda for a regularly scheduled board meeting.
Okay.
So they said that work sessions are excluded,
Okay.
called meetings are excluded, so just the traditional, the fourth Tuesday of the month.
Okay.
That would be the regular board meeting, yes, sir.
All right, just want to make sure. Motion for approval.
So move.
Second.
Moving second.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Harris?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Daniel?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. McPipkin?
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. If you please, board, this time we'll have CFO, Mr. Aldridge, come up and provide information on financials and budget.
We're gonna start with the FY '22 initial budget. To kind of give you an illustration there, the general fund, the first column on that initial budget, that's kind of what we've been discussing for the last, say, 2 months off and on. Discussing where we were, the additional amounts that we've gone back into with y'all and Dr. Kelly, the last few weeks about the few items that we wanted to add that he thought were good things for us to add for this coming up budget. I added those in to that budget, and when you look at that budget, you'll see that we're roughly budgeting just a little bit over $4.3 million. I guess that would be in excess, would be more expenditures than we would have revenue. As we have discussed, we are usually always in the red in the budget, but we've been in the black for the last about 7 years in a row, I believe, when I went back and started looking at those. So the numbers are just always a little bit inflated. I promise you, I'm an accountant at heart. They will always be that way. We're always going to be conservative on the revenues, and we'd rather be confident in what we're budgeted on the expenditure side, and that way we monitor it that way. You don't want to push the revenue and be short on the expenditures, because when you get to the next year, you probably are not going to be where you want to be. So the general fund there, when you look at that, we are estimating an excess when we end June the 30th of about $16.5 million in the fund balance. That number is probably going to be on the conservative side. My honest opinion is it's probably going to be closer to $17 million. So even if we were to spend roughly $4.3 million, we would still have $12 million in fund balance at June 30th, 2022. That's what you're looking at there in that budget for the general fund. The next fund next to it is the CARES Act 2. We were allotted $6.2 million from the federal government to use for CARES Act relief. Dr. Kelly has formulated a budget on how that money is going to be spent for those CARES Act 2. I will go ahead and tell you, and he will as well, they have gotten a lot more stringent on the things that they are kind of letting us do compared to what we got into with CARES 1 a year ago when we were going through all of this. It was a little bit more wide open. they gave us a little bit of a blueprint, but this second one is much more stringent. They're kind of narrowing in what they want that money to be spent for. So that in theory is, there may be some items that are technically being budgeted for in the general fund that actually could be picked up in that CARES Act, or and vice versa. Because there are some overlays, especially in sanitation and cleanliness and all that kind of stuff. That's a big issue in CARES relief. And so even now, I mean, I know that, we got the vaccine out there and we're no longer wearing masks, but at any time that cleanliness is going to be there for a while, as long as those CARES Acts are in conjunction. The next few pages, the next two columns are title funds. Nicole, if you'll go on to the next page, and these are all going to be federal programs. The Title I migrant, your special education, that's federal money. Carl Perkins, that comes through the high school. That's another federal money. You got Title V, Title IV-A. All of those are federal budgets that the federal program coordinator normally deals with. These budgets are really not completely finished yet. The federal programs coordinator goes back into between the state and actually finalizes an official budget for those amounts. These are pretty close estimates based on prior years. Their revenues are pretty close from one year to the next, and usually their expenditures are used for the same general areas every year. So there's really not much to discuss on those. They're kind of actually not going to be determined. Those official budgets won't even be completed until almost October the 1st between our federal programs coordinator and dealing with the people that they deal with. But they have to be put on the budget for us to look at and to be approved by the board. If you'll go to the last page, you will see capital projects. Obviously, we just had a big discussion about what's going on with capital projects. What I will show you there is the revenue side of that is the top part of that up there, that $3.5 million, $3.6 million. That's sales tax revenue that we're getting every month. And then that roughly $2 million that's where we're getting money back from the state as we work on the James E. Bacon project. That's just an estimate for next year, how much money we will hopefully have gone through the process of submitting invoices and stuff to them and started receiving money back from the state for their portion of their kick-in for the capital outlay project. We're estimating roughly about $10 million being spent in this next fiscal year. Pretty confident, obviously, the track will be done. And at a minimum, that's putting you at about $8 million worth of James E. Bacon completed already. And that's where we are. If that amount of money were to be spent in relation to the amount of revenue we were to make, capital projects fund would have a little over $7.5 million left in the account to complete the rest of James E. Bacon's project. Now, the other thing we got to remember is there will be more money coming in from the state in the following year, so that fund will get some more excess in there, revenue that has not been received, and so that's why it's not being reflected in the fund balance. This budget for tonight is kind of what we call the tentative budget. Once y'all discuss and we do a formal approval of that, we've got to run it in the newspaper, we've got to post it on the website, and then we've got to have the 14 days to occur so y'all can officially approve the final budget, which is one that is actually submitted directly to the state for next year and to be our budget. And obviously, just in case I want to remind y'all, the reason we do that is we got to have a budget for next year, and if we don't, then we have to go through a process of a spending resolution, which is not a very fun process if we can not do that. The budget is the much better route to go than the spending resolution. I feel like we're in a very good place. I feel like I'm in a very good place. I started this job 2 weeks before COVID outbreak last year, and all I heard from the state was they were going to cut our budget 20%. I didn't know if we were going to make it. Being new into this job, seeing how things flowed, and it did not get as bad as it was. I feel much better this year going into this budget cycle with the numbers that I know we got from the state and the things that we can do. We should be in a very good place. The school system has done well. We have gone through that COVID outbreak very well, I think, financially. And so at the end, when we get back to full scale from the state, 'cause we're still a little short from the state, as far as because of our QBE numbers. When that becomes full cycle, which we hope will happen in this next year as the student numbers come back up, there will be some things that the board will have the opportunity to do because the revenue will be back to where it was originally, say, 2 years ago. So if there are any questions or comments, I'll do the best I can to answer.
I'm gonna go ahead and ask this, just a loaded question.
All right.
There was question about our millage rate and I guess our fund balance and, as far as, the board making considerations for, reducing millage rate. And I'm gonna tell you this, and then you tell me what you think as from your professional, point of view. Based on the information that you've told us, about things, I know we're in a good place. We have the big projects that are going on, but we also still have a little uncertainty as far as the funding from the state. Although the state, the state gives it, the state take it away. So at this time, like you're saying, we're still looking for some money that should be coming in. We're still being affected by QBE. That's speculation. What if these kids have moved and don't come back?
Absolutely.
There are those possibilities that are there. So, I feel like that we're making the budget based upon the factual and concrete information that we have.
That is correct. You are very, very much the case, Ms. Daniel. You got several factors in there. There's some timing issues with when the millage rate is determined and when that revenue comes into play. That's part of the problem, and they kind of cross each other in our fiscal years runs from July 1st to June the 30th.
Right.
We're making decisions on the budget for FY22 on what was estimated revenue based on what was probably done last August, the last time the millage rate was changed. So, you're talking 9-10 months difference in play, part of it. You're also correct in as far as when you look at our total revenues, I don't have the official percentage in my head, but I would probably say around 80% of our revenues are state driven. So the state revenue is a much larger portion of where our revenue comes from than the local tax side. Right now, that's where the cut was on the state side. The local side, as far as the property taxes and all go, stayed fairly consistent and have stayed fairly strong. There was really no cut on that side as far as us not receiving the revenues. Now, I would also like to mention and throw in there that, over the last X number of years, we've had to go through some lawsuit issues where we've had to turn and pay money back to the county to reimburse for money that we had received in previous years of no fault of the Board of Education system either. So that's kind of been going into play as well. On that subject, let me mention this. 2 weeks ago, we got the check for Flippa. It came early this year. Last year, I don't think we got that money till almost September, and that's when they cut a portion of it to pay off that amount for the lawsuit that we had to deal with. The money came early this time, so we got the full amount because the payment's not due yet. So, and it was a nice amount. I think they're getting more consistent. From my understanding, Flippa was kind of getting held up in the courts and everything else. It was dragging. And now we're hoping it's going to be a yearly thing like it was supposed to be originally. So come September or October, when that payment's going to be due, that's not normally a high revenue month from the tax office. So we're probably going to have to cut a check instead of them physically shorten our revenue that coming year as well. Now, we've got to do that this year around September, and we'll have another one due September of 22, and then we will be through, assuming no more come up. So that is in play as well.
I think I would also like to say, if you don't mind, RJ, funding from the state is very volatile. 1 year can be very good, and the next year, depending on the state budget, we get cut, about certain things. We are enjoying a little influx of money right now, from the federal government for CARES. And, but that money is, it's very restricted with regard to what we can spend it on, what we can't spend it on. And, it is only gonna last 2 to 3 years. And so, it doesn't even come close to making up for any of the, for the austerity cuts and the things that we've had to deal with, the board's had to deal with for the last decade. So, we're finally able to provide some things to our kids that we may not have been able to provide before. But it's also very prudent of this board to make sure that we think not only for next year, but, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years down the road, because at any time our funding, can be impacted by whatever happens at the state. And so to have, to have a little bit of a safety net is what I would feel is very prudent on the board, because regardless of what happens, we still have kids we have to educate, teachers we have to pay, lunches we have to make, and, people we have to, provide for our kids to be able to educate. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to start having to furlough people. So I think we have a very good, solid budget. I think we have a lot of things in place to help us attract, retain, and build our talent pool with regard to our teachers and our administrators and people that are in the school. I think we have great leaders in our central office. I think we have a very quality board to oversee all of that, and I'm very happy with this budget. I think it allows for our kids to be supported in a manner that citizens in Wayne County expect us to provide for them.
And I do want to share some information that I received from the tax commissioner's office. I should have sent it to you. I did a little research. A 10-year from 2010 to 2020 for the millage rate. In 2010, the school millage rate was 16.5. And if you continue on, it was raised to 20 mills in 2012. Dropped to 19 mills in 2013. 2014, it was dropped to 18 mills. And from 2014 through 2019, it was 18 mills. And in 2020, it was dropped to 17.963 mills. And I know the question came about that we did that so that we wouldn't have to have, a meeting or whatever, okay? Also, we were in a time of uncertainty during that time. $5 million plus austerity cuts. So there are a lot of things that came into play at that time, and we had to make sure that we were doing whatever we needed to do to ensure that our kids had the funding that they needed. Because at that time, there was no funding actually coming from the state at that time, not additional like we have now this time. So I just wanted to plug that in, and I appreciate everything that you've been doing for us, and I think you're doing a fine job, and just thank you.
If I may, a very brief comment. I think, Nick, you and I have been on the board for 6 years. One thing that I'm proud of is 7 years.
I've been here 6.
Time gets away. One thing that I'm proud of as a board member, though, is we haven't had to do a tax anticipation note. We kept our budgets in the black, and we've had our ups and downs during that time period, but I'm proud of the fact that we've always had a balanced budget. We didn't have to borrow money to keep our system solvent until the tax numbers came in. And one more brief comment, and I want to make sure I understood something Dr. Kelly said last weekend, our last meeting, I'm sorry. One thing I think that the air conditioning quote for the new Gpia project, I think post-COVID, air conditioning is also going to include air purification. You're not just thinking about cooling, you're thinking about providing fresh air to minimize the spread of illness or disease. Dr. Kelly, did I remember you commenting that some of this CARES money will go to offset the expense of the air conditioning in James E. Bacon in the new project?
Yes, sir.
So, and that, I think that's the kind of guidelines you guys are talking about that stipulate where that money can be spent. But I think years going forward, we're not going to be just talking about air conditioning from a temperature perspective. We're also going to be talking about clean, quality breathing air. And Lord knows, we have flu season, and who knows what else will come down in the future. But this CARES money is gonna help us to make our schools safer in the event that we do have some type of other outbreak. So I think that's a big plus, using that CARE money to offset the cost of that school is gonna be huge from a budget perspective for our school system. Thank you.
I just want to say that, you know, this budget has really worked itself out. I mean, I think we've been good stewards of the taxpayers' dollars. We've built 4 brand new schools, and we knew that this renovation and remodelization project was going to be one that was going to be a little challenging. We didn't know how challenging it was going to be. But, you know, it is what it is. At this point, the kids of District 5, the kids of James E. Bacon deserve a school modernization project. They deserve to have fresh air. They deserve to have up-to-date technology and a clean building with fresh tile and things in that. And so, yeah, it looks $21 million is a lot of money, and there could be some people who are upset about it. But at the end of the day, those kids deserve that, just like the kids in Odom, Scriven, Jessup Elementary, and Martha Smith got a school that's brand new and good for them. Just like when we were here at the old high school and we got a new high school, we deserve that then, and these kids deserve it too. And, you know, we have worked with our budget. We've, you know, cut back when we needed to cut back. We haven't spent. We're able to do some projects that have, you know, really been put off for 20 years. You talk about this track project, and we've heard a lot of conversation about the track project. You're talking about 20 years of conversation. Several boards have decided we're going to do it. They planned it, never did it. Those kids deserve to have a place where they can, you know, run and be a part of their athletic programs. That's going to cost a little money. We have other programs that are waiting. RTC is waiting to have a decent building. Right now, we took some modular units from the old Martha Smith, refurbished them and made them and put them over there, and that's what they're using. They deserve to have a full regular size classroom. That's going to cost us some money. So when we discuss, you know, our millage rate, we have to take into account that there are still things that we have to provide children. We do honor and respect the citizens and the taxpayers of this district. We do, but we're also responsible for providing public education to these kids. And along with public education comes these programs that are only going to help these kids become better citizens of this community. We've seen how many kids have went through military programs out of this school district that are going to be leaders in the nation's military this year. You know, that can't happen when you don't have a successful ROTC program preparing the kids for those opportunities. We have kids who left and went to athletic scholarships. Can't happen if we don't have good facilities. Yeah, we've asked booster clubs to support for years, as we've heard in the last couple of weeks, but we're now taking the rightful place, and we're providing those things that we are not asking citizens and private business owners to continue to do the Board of Education. So the last 7 years have been good in the budget. RJ, thank you for what you're doing. I commend the efforts that Ms. Tony did when she was here. She kept us on a tight rope, and you're keeping us on a tight rope. Dr. Brinson kept us on a tight rope, and so we are expecting you and Dr. Kelly to keep us on a tight rope.
I think one thing we need to remind too, I know it's been said to me a few times that, you know, well, that's not a new school, but in talking with TQ and those guys, it will be a new school. Even though it's the same footprint, the same location, they have assured us that that's going to be a brand new school. So I think when we get in it and it's said and done, teachers that work there, students that go there, parents will be appreciative of what's there.
What percentage of our budget consists of salaries?
I think when we look at that.
About 85.
Yeah, when you can figure salaries and benefits, which
And
they
we
go
get-
hand in hand.
And so we have to have those salaries because we have to pay our teachers to educate our kids because they're not volunteering to doing it free, because I didn't do it for free. I'm just saying. I expected to check it the end of the month.
And
So,
When you look at our budget, you think about the amount of things that we added back into our budget. You know, when districts were not adding things and they were talking about furloughs, we were adding, you know, we added art. Say we talked about the art program. That was one of the first things we did when we started adding positions. We added all 5 of the schools got art teachers. We worked on increasing what we were doing for our gifted students. So we've increased our salaries. We've added positions to the central office. We've added positions to, you know, assist and support our middle school instruction. We've done a good job. We've adjusted and aligned some things at our central office. According to the SAC's recommendation, we needed to do some of those things. And some of those positions were created because of that. So it's a part of the business.
Mr. Aldridge has done a great job managing the finances of the system. He needs to be commended. He's done a great job on this budget. And if there aren't any more comments or considerations, I would ask the board to take action and approve our tentative FY22 budget.
make a motion, we approve the tentative budget for 21, 22.
Second?
Move to second.
And Mr. Ellis?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Harris?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Daniel?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. McPipkin?
Yes, ma'am. All right, April. We'll do the April financial report.
I was waiting on her to get ready.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
All right, we're gonna change it up a little bit. We're gonna get some good news of how we were looking through April the 30th. And it'll be why I kind of made that argument about where I think the fund balance is going to be. The bank balance at April the 31st was $3,264,114.54, and the savings account had $10,942,574.32. I've been proud that savings account has stayed up to that point. I couldn't tell you the last time I've actually moved money from that savings account over to the main account. Definitely not this last several months. That's from a couple factors. Number one, the state made a mid-year adjustment on our QBE money. It went up some, so that was significant enough that it helped. It sort of balanced it out where the revenue and expenditure sort of balanced themselves out. That savings account, the reason I say that is that's that portion of the fund that a lot of times around this time of the year, summertime through the first of the year starts back up, it usually gets transferred into the general fund. And about the time we get to December, when the property taxes come in, that money flows back over, goes back into that savings account. We try to leave that money there. It draws a little more interest in that account than it does in our main account. It's a little kind of like it's a little safer and it's over there to the side. And it kind of lets me monitor the main account better and not have that influx of money sitting there. But I have been proud that, we were a little worried when we got so many state cuts, how fast that money might go back out. But it sort of balanced itself out with some adjustments and stuff that was made, and we were good stewards, especially the first half of the year. We really were trying to monitor things. And so that's a good sign that those accounts have stayed up to that point. Over on page 2, you will see that the fund balance at April the 30th is $17,932,425.78. It's a strong fund balance. We will have probably another, I haven't seen the official May number yet, but it should be a good number for May. The kicker is, and I'll always go ahead and try to tell you that as we get close to this, is even when we go to get ready to June, we have a lot of accruals that get done. And that the best way I can explain that is July and August's payroll will get accrued into June the 30th. The reason for that is, of course, we run on our 12-month cycle ends on June the 30th. The state's financials in 2 months later. And so to make our financials comparable to theirs so they can report for the entire state, they make us do all those additional accruals. So I have to accrue in July and August payroll. So if we were to pull up an expenditure so far for salaries, those salaries for what we paid people in July and August when we technically started our fiscal year are actually in last year's fiscal year's financials. So we've got to get those two in there so we have a full 12 months. So that fund balance is gonna hang strong, but when you go to start throwing those accruals in there, it will fluctuate some. That's why when I gave y'all that earlier and I conservatively told you I figured it would be $16.5 million, I feel like we will be every bit of that, if not more. But I wanted y'all to have at least a number that we would be over, so you would have a good number to work off of when you are approving that budget. On page 3, you will see the current month's revenue was $4,386,210.76, with our year-to-date revenue at $38,388,807.39. On pages 4 through 9 are the current month's expenditures, and on page 9 you will actually see the totals of a current month: $3,237,309.36, and the year-to-date expenditures are $34,240,263.27. On pages 10 and 11, this is our capital projects. The first number I want to give to you that's obviously of importance is on that very top page. Sales tax collection for the month of April was $439,816.84. Always want to remind you, we're shooting for 300. Anything above that is always a good sign. So there was a significant amount of sales tax in the month of April, a lot more than I would say we would normally get in a given month. That money goes to pay our interest in our bonds, which is the most important thing that they do. And then, of course, the excess of that is what we use for capital projects. That's the reason for that SPLOST fund. So having a strong number like that is a good sign to help pay for the track project and the James E. Bacon projects and the other little things that SPLOST fund gets used for. On pages 12 through 14, this is our federal funds, which I've discussed with y'all. They will be in the red, and at least it will be until June the 30th. They're on a reimbursable basis. So we have to spend the money, then I have to turn around and request it back, and it comes in from the state. That is the way they want us to do it. They never want us to request money before it is spent. I can promise you that. So those will always be in the red. So don't be alarmed every time you look at those that say federal funds, those couple pages of financials. They should always look like they're in the red until we get to the end of the fiscal year. Over on page 15, well, let me go back. There's one thing I wanted to show you on that. There is something new that y'all would have not ever seen before. Go back up to page 13, Nicole. I believe it's on 13. Right there, do y'all see that 448, that CARES ESSER3 that you see sitting there on that financial? That was the salary bonuses that were done. That was the amount that the state allotted, that they budgeted for us, that they will have reimbursed us for. We actually got the money the 1st of May of the entire bonuses that we did for everybody in the system. When y'all made that proclamation to do $1,000 for everybody, then the state only had certain employees that they technically included under that. That was their portion of the amount that they were giving us back, that $676,093. So that's a new fund that y'all would have never seen before on this particular report. I wanted to show you to y'all, so you point that out that you would know what it was. Over on page 15, school food service. For the month of April, they had a loss of $150,679.09, but their year-to-date profit is still strong, of $769,611.28. Of course, their vast majority of their money is coming from the feds. Theirs has been very strong due to all the CARES funding. One of the big initiatives of CARES was making sure to feed the children. And so they're receiving a lot of funds for the way they do meals, and even like currently we're now doing summer meals where we're doing them twice a week, but they're giving them, I believe, up to 7 meals total. It feeds them for a whole week in the 2 drops. That's all driven by the federal. They get a certain amount of money because they are doing 7 meals or 7 days worth of meals than they would have during our old plans, say 3 years ago when we did summer feeding and they fed them breakfast and lunch on site. So it's a different source of revenue, which is why school food services revenues year to date have been up compared to what they usually are in previous years. They told me that this will continue for one more year due to the CARES funding. Come this time next year, they will probably have a directive that we will probably go back to the way it was probably 3 years ago, assuming everything goes according to plan. No more COVID flare-ups and that kind of stuff. And so they then will have to do a more thorough job of watching their stuff, their revenue and expenditures, because they won't have all that additional funding coming from the federal. But that's why their number looks inflated more so than it normally does, is because they've been getting some additional revenue from the federal government. On page 16, you will see the school food services expenditures for the month of April. This is a more detailed version, so you get a little better idea of kind of the different areas that they have spent money in. And then on pages 17 through 19, these are budget amendments. On 17 and 18 are general fund. There are no notations in red. There were no amendments to the general fund in the month of April, but I will bring your attention on page 19. There is one item that is in red, and that is the item I just mentioned to you just a few minutes ago, that CARES 3 SSR bonuses. Obviously, we didn't budget for that when we were doing the FY21 budget, because we didn't know that it was even going to exist. And so the original budget was zero, but once the state notated to us, or it came from the federal, but came through the state, that we were going to receive that additional money, we had to do a budget amendment for that. And so that was for y'all to present it to y'all, so y'all could approve that as part of the financials for the month of April. Are there any questions or comments?
You said we received how much back from the state?
That amount right there, that was the amount of a payment that we would have, I think we received that like the first week in May, $676,093 exactly.
What was our estimated total that we spent?
The amount was close to, I want to say 800 maybe. It might not even been quite that high. It was somewhere like that, but you got to understand,
Right.
Couple things. Number one, you paid every employee in the system, and they only gave a certain portion. The other thing was, we also wanted the net checks to be $1,000. When they calculated theirs on a gross of $1,000. So there was an adjustment for every employee of a small amount as well. So I think it come out to around 150 to 175. I think what the school system kicked in relation to that the state did not reimburse us for. All right.
Motion for approval.
Second.
Moved in second.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Harris?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Daniel?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Pipkin?
Thank you very much, Mr. Aldridge.
Well, I hope we don't have a long executive session tonight. Move into executive session to discuss or deliberate upon appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of an officer, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent. Motion for executive session, hopefully is short.
Second.
Move to second.
Mr. Ellis?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Davidson?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Harris?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Daniel?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Pipkin?
I got a patrol tonight, so.
Oh, got something to do.
I got that work, we got some supervisors.
Got to do what else?
I got hurt tonight.
Oh, that's the wrong thing. That's why I can't turn it off. There it is.